Welcome to the MedConceptions podcast, a podcast about leading a healthy and more mindful life. I have the pleasure here to be today with psychologist Dr. Andreas Anastasiou, once again, due to popular demand. And we'll be talking today about building resilience to stress, avoiding overthinking, and managing people-pleasing behavior. Now, I'll say a few words about you for those that don't know you. Dr. Andreas Anastasiou is a psychologist and an associate professor of psychology at the University of Nicosia. He holds a Ph.D. in counseling psychology from the University of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, USA. So, how are you, Dr. Andreas?
Very good. It's great to be here again.
I'm very glad you're here with us today. So, I want to start with, what is resilience?
Resilience is our ability to fight off uncomfortable emotions, to get through difficulties in our life. And everybody has, I would say, different levels of resilience, but we can also build resilience. It's not something, though. I'm someone who, I'm quite optimistic in general, and I've seen people find strengths inside them that they never knew existed. I see this all the time with clients that I have. People who think that are not strong, but yet when push comes to shove, when life puts things in their plate, they find a lot of strength to get through them. But we're gonna talk in greater detail about this later on.
So how do you combine this with resilience with stress? So everybody now has stress from multiple factors.
Unfortunately, I would say stress. Actually, anxiety, I would say, is the new normal. Anxiety is extreme stress. Stress is very normal on some level. We all experience stress. That's why in psychology, we never talk about the treatment of stress. We talk about stress and coping. Okay. Stress is something that we all experience. If someone doesn't have any stress in his or her life about anything, sometimes I would worry about that.
Mentally ill.
We're supposed to, some things are supposed to stress us out. I mean, if we see our kids doing something that is dangerous, of course we're going to be stressed out. We should be stressed out if we don't do our job. Stress is something that we all experience. There are a lot of things that we can do to handle our stress. The other thing that is very important is to figure out what are the sources of stress that I have in my life and what are things that I can actually eliminate. And sometimes even things that we really enjoy are stressful because we simply have more things on our plates. So if I do something that I enjoy very much, I dare to say I have an extra responsibility to protect it by having balance in my life, as opposed to keep adding even enjoyable things in my plate. That's going to lead to burnout, and sometimes people can even get depressed because of that. So what are things in my life that can eliminate, including activities, including relationships? What interactions do I have with people that make me uncomfortable? That is why I'm a big proponent of, and this is a homework that I give to many of my clients actually. How do I feel after an interaction with somebody? Do I leave and I feel, wow, this was good, I feel very good? Or do I leave that interaction and I have a knot in my stomach and I don't feel good? So it's okay to use how we feel as an instrument of assessment of the other. And relationships that we find to be very toxic to us, very stressful, it's okay to take a step back. I always say I refuse to have unhealthy interactions with anybody. So it's something that we definitely need to look at. Are there people in my life that make me feel uncomfortable, that are somewhat toxic, that I can sometimes not necessarily eliminate them because they could even be members of our family. But how can I modify interaction so that it's much less stressful? And probably the better question is, what is the healthiest interaction that I can have with somebody? I cannot control how someone else behaves. I can only control how I behave.
I want to go back to what you said. Everybody has stress and it's something normal. How do I know that the stress I am having now is unhealthy? It's an unhealthy amount. What's a good indicator?
We have various indicators, I would say, various criteria. One of them is distress. To what extent, how much distress is that causing me? Okay, is it getting too much? Number two is disability. Does that render me unable to perform daily activities? The things that I used to do in the past that were pleasurable, now I don't want to do them. And I also find myself just not wanting to enjoy or do things. Sometimes I might want to stay in bed and not do anything. Okay. The other one is deviance. To what extent does what I do deviate from the norms of society? Now, having said that, when it comes to this criterion, I dare to say that sometimes what is normal, within quotes, is not necessarily healthy. So I might not deviate from society now if I tell you, you know what, I have anxiety. It's very normal. Not healthy, but normal. So, and the fourth criterion is danger. Do I pose any danger to myself or anyone else? Do I find myself having, for example, suicidal thoughts? Or do I want to hurt myself? Do I want to cut myself? Okay. So in a nutshell, these are some of the things that we have in mind. Or in the case of parents, for example, when parents are stressed out, we see a shift in their parenting style. They tend to become much more authoritarian with their kids. Okay, they tend to become bad listeners. They tend to be very snappy, much more irritable, and we also see the effects of stress on our relationships. Okay, we tend to become bad listeners to our wives, our husbands. Okay, we tend to become much more critical. And our ability to empathize with the other side, which is the glue that keeps relationships together, is actually compromised. So that's why I always say that especially after we become parents, we have a much greater responsibility to de-stress, to take care of ourselves, and to take care of our relationship. Not to minimize all the stresses that children bring into a relationship. I'm not trying to minimize that. But sometimes we just have to be a bit more creative in taking care of ourselves.
What are some practical ways you can suggest?
I would say number one, exercise. We need to exercise. Whenever we exercise, really good things are happening in our brain. I would say number one, exercise, and also find the type of exercise that you like. I like to run. Someone else might like to swim. Someone else might like to play football. The other thing is very important to invest in our relationships. Do I have a good listener in my life? Whenever we have, there was an interesting piece of, I'm having all these random thoughts now, but actually they're not that random, they're actually related. I saw this piece of research when I was in the United States about 10, 15 years ago, that whether you are male or female, you need to have a woman in your life to buffer you from depression and anxiety. Now, the explanation for that is women tend to be socialized to be much more empathic and much better listeners than men. So it's the idea that I have someone in my life that I can talk to, and that person will understand me. Whenever I feel validated, whenever I feel that someone really gets me and understands me, immediately I relax. I don't fight to make myself heard. The other thing that we need to do is make sure that we have. This might sound very cliche, but we have work-life balance. I'm gonna quote Paul Tsongas, who was an American senator, and he died of leukemia in his 50s. And on his deathbed, one of the things that he said is that no one on his deathbed ever said, I should have spent more time at the office. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of, if I look back onto my life, am I going to be happy with the kind of life that I lived? And always staying in the present. And I think that stresses people out a lot, is that they usually don't live in the present. They go to the future, they catastrophize, and that ruins their present. Or they might go to the past and not talk about the past productively. That ruins the present. If we want to talk about the future, we can do it in an optimistic way, but without living in la la land.
Yeah.
We are optimistic but grounded to make our present better. If we go to the past, we have the benefit of knowledge of the past. Let's talk about the past productively to make the present better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and also just make sure that we spend time with ourselves, and not needing, I would say, someone else to come and rescue us from our stress.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and not expect other people to do our work for us to de-stress or to be happy or whatever. Okay.
You brought up a point that I wanted to talk about today, which is, I think, the thing that you said about future and past and overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll simplify it to overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people my age are struggling with overthinking,
Mm-hmm.
and you go to bed and you try to go to sleep in 1 hour, 2 hours, and you're still processing everything that has gone through the day.
Mm-hmm.
What's your advice on this?
Another epidemic, I would say, today is this overthinking. All these automatic thoughts come to your mind, and you just, ruminate. You keep thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, and you might be really exhausted, but you can't sleep because your brain is very active.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the work is going to be done when we are actually well. Okay, and being kind to ourselves and practice not just positive thinking, but I would say a positive spirit. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
where you go outside and you look at the sky, it's blue, and you might say, "Oh, great, we have blue sky today." Or if it's cloudy, you go outside and you say, "Oh, great, it's cloudy. We're going to have some rain, and we need rain in Cyprus."
Yeah.
So we need to practice, I would say, this positive spirit. And there are many ways of doing it. For example, we can practice gratitude, being thankful about stuff in our life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this clip of this person in the U.S. who was she was a 32-year-old woman dying of cancer. And initially she went through a lot of depression. I remember when I saw her in that clip, she was, skin and bone. After she had finished chemo, she went and she seemed very happy. And when they were interviewing her, they asked her, you seem very happy. She said, I wasn't always happy. Actually, I went through a lot of depression. But what I realized is that I was not going to wait for things to get better before being happy.
Mm.
And that's one of the things that I heard, and I said, wow, this is talking about resilience.
Yeah.
In the beginning we talked about resilience. That's resilience to the nth degree.
I think another way of saying it that we used to say in medical interviews is adversity activated development.
Yes.
I don't know if you've come across it. Yeah.
I'll say it a bit differently. How can I take whatever life has put on my plate and turn it into a strength?
I think this falls again with the positive thinking. Even if something negative comes your way,
Sure.
let's say, you find there's always a way to think about positively about something.
Positive doesn't mean we are in la la land. We can be very grounded, and we might feel sad. It could be a very difficult period for us. It doesn't mean that we cannot also be positive. Positive doesn't mean that you're jumping up and down. Woohoo! Everything is nice and fabulous. No, it's more like the spirit with which we encounter and address adversity. Okay, it's more that, I would say, than anything else. Going back to negative thinking, I've learned a lot from the clients that I've had throughout the years, and I had this client who he came up with his own technique that I actually suggest to many other clients. He discovered the method of bullshit. He said, sometimes I have all these thoughts in my mind, and I learn how to say to myself, bullshit, what am I thinking? Okay, what kind of thoughts am I having?
Yeah.
Okay, for him, it was very effective.
Yeah.
Okay, But again, it's the idea of really shifting the way that we think, catching ourselves when we have all these negative thoughts or negative spirit. And as I said, most of the work is going to be done when we are well. Okay. And it's also the idea of really exploring, what does it mean for me to be kind to myself? There's nothing wrong with exploring what does it mean for me to be kind to myself. And I think that I see all the time is people who are really good at taking care of others. Okay, thinking about other people, taking care of other people, but they stop taking care of themselves, and it's almost they might even feel guilty to take care of themselves. Okay, as opposed to allowing also other people to take care of them. So why deprive other people of the pleasure of taking care of them? Okay, so the question is, why am I uncomfortable if someone else takes care of me? Okay.
Is it my pride?
Well, yeah, sometimes if we allow someone else to take care of us, we feel more vulnerable. It could also be a matter of pride. You know, I don't mind sharing a personal story with you. When I was a student at the university, it was during my second year, and my father was dying in Cyprus. So I get a call from my brother telling me, you know, Andrea, our father is not very well. You know, he doesn't have many days left. If you want to stay where you are, it's okay. But we needed to let you know. Following 2 days later, I got on the plane from Toronto, Canada, to go to Cyprus to see my dad. And I mean, it was a very quick thing. I went and I had to find tickets, and then I had one professor who came and told me, "Do you need a ride to the airport?" Dr. Smith Hines, who I will never forget. And I said, "Sure." And my ride was from Pennsylvania to Toronto, Canada. It was a 7-hour ride.
Wow.
So he took me to the airport. The same day, later on during the day in the evening, I get a knock on my door. My other dear professor, Dr. Stan Wisniewski, who died a few years ago, he came, opened my hand, and put $1,000 in cash and said to me, "This is an unexpected expense. You might need this." And the truth is that I didn't need it, but I took it. Because the spirit with which he was giving it to me was so pure, and so that I don't want to deprive him of that. Of course, as soon as I came back, I gave it back to him.
Yeah.
Okay, that was one of the first things that I did. Those were the experiences that gave me a lot of hope, that there is a lot of good in the world, and we should not forget that. You know, the majority of people are nice, decent, good, kind people. Let's be like them.
Let's be like them.
Yeah,
follow their example.
Yeah, let's be like them. We have many good examples,
and they're everywhere. It's not just one or two people.
We see them every day. We see them every day.
You just have to notice them.
I would say we need to. We notice them, but the sad thing is that I think we pay much more attention to people who stress us out, and we respond in a very negative way to them, and we feel the need to protect ourselves. And it's a good thing to do that, but the mistake that we make is that we might become something that we're not by overprotecting ourselves and not allowing good people to come to our life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It does.
Okay.
And I could see this like as an attention shift. Like
it's like I might in the classes that I teach, okay, I tend to trust my students now. Do I have students who might fool me? Of course, absolutely. But why should I change my spirit of trusting my students by focusing on a small minority as opposed to the overwhelming majority of students?
Let the others fool you. It's fine, I guess.
That's okay. I'm someone that can be fooled.
Yeah.
And I take pride in that.
I think that's a good characteristic. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the idea of being vulnerable. Okay. And the other thing that I think stresses people out a lot is never really exploring who they are, and they behave in ways, or they take on an identity that's not really theirs. They might assume that it's theirs, but not really. That is why we first need to explore, who am I? How do I function? What do I like? What do I not like? Have I made unhealthy compromises in my life? Okay, and I always say, whenever there's something in our life is not, good, or is not fulfilling, or stresses us out, okay, let's see how we can change it. But the idea of just sitting there, not
passively,
passively, and just doesn't work. We're not living a meaningful life.
I want to bring something else here. Like, for me, it is a part that brings me stress in my life: people pleasing. So I always think, I have to be a good friend to this person, to this friend, to this, or be this person that everybody wants me to be. And I know, again, it's not just me. It's something that's people pleasing. It's something that's out there. How do you combat this?
I think we need to make a distinction between, do I want to take care of people or please them? We need to make that distinction. Pleasing people sometimes can move us away from who we are. Okay, taking care of people can move us closer to who we are. Okay, and also when we take care of other people, the assumption that we need to make before we do that is that we also take care of ourselves. And taking care of ourselves, if we are in a position to take care of other people, I'm going to say the old cliche that we say: first, you take care of yourself. Okay, so and also, if we please other people, or if we take care of other people, do we also allow ourselves to be taken care of? Okay, and to be pleased by others. Okay, I always think of relationships as reciprocal. It's like empathy. For a relationship to work, both people in the relationship have to be able to communicate empathy to the other. You cannot do all the work to sustain the relationship. Okay, we have to allow the other person to also invest in the relationship. Otherwise, the people pleaser will reach a point of burnout. Okay, and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm always who does A, B, C. Hey, I need something too. Okay.
Have you seen a change in personalities with, let's say, your generation and my generation? We don't have such a big gap, but
I still read comics.
You still
and watch cartoons on TV, right?
But let's say the norm. Do you see, even our grandparents, do you see a difference in our personality?
I think life now is becoming more fast-paced, and I think that is creating a lot of stress. Life is not as simple as it used to be. Thinking about the life of my parents and my grandparents, in some way, I think parenting now. Again, I'm maybe overgeneralizing. Maybe I don't have exactly the experience of my parents or my grandparents, but I think parenting now is much more difficult because we have to deal with so many things, especially when it comes to screens, what our kids watch. But I'm not sure I see a difference in personality. I mean, at that time we had extroverts and introverts. So the same thing goes for today.
So it's the environment that changes, basically.
Yeah. The environment has changed, and depending on your personality, you react to the environment differently.
Okay.
I think it's more than anything else.
We have another 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask you another question. So how do you specifically deal with stress? And I know that psychologists, let's say you go and you listen to a few clients, and you're basically, without you knowing, you're receiving all this, the burden of everybody, of everybody's lives. How do you deal with that? And that's something that I always had, like, how do psychologists?
We have 4 minutes.
Wow.
I always say also to my students that in this type of, I don't like to call it profession. It's like what we do. It's not my job. It's my life's work. And I make a distinction between the two.
Okay.
Job is where you go to make money and support your family. And of course, it's also my job, but it's very important for your job to also be your life's work. Something that you do that is meaningful, your passion, getting up in the morning and going and enjoying what you do. The other thing is that we must not assume that, oh my God, it's so stressful all the time. You hear problems, da 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 da. Yeah, of course I do. But it can also, whenever you see one of the people that you see do better and feel better, you know what? That's energizing. As a psychologist, I always feel good. It makes me want to go back to work. It's a very meaningful thing to do when I see my clients do better. Okay. The other thing that is very important is self-care. Personally, I exercise every day. Actually, that's not true. Friday, it's my day off.
Okay.
Friday, it's pizza and flash day. Anyway, after work.
I love that.
Yeah. So,
this way.
The other thing that is very important is to be in a good relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. To be happy to finish work and look forward to going home, to seeing your wife, to seeing your husband. Very, very important. And the other thing is to also be aware where my limitations lie. What are my limits? Okay. Do I have too many clients? Okay. So I need to know what my limit is. And for us who are in a profession of helping others, again, we'll go back to the idea that we have greater responsibility to take care of ourselves. We don't want to have compassion fatigue and then go to work, see a client, and not feel anything for that client, not feel empathy or compassion. Stress can compromise our ability to communicate empathy and compassion. That is why because of the kinds of things that we hear, we have to take very, very good care of ourselves. And also, delve into an exploration of what does it mean for me as a psychologist to be kind to myself. How do I take care of myself individually? What do I need? Okay, what needs do I have? Okay, how am I going to? And essentially, I think is what we mentioned in the previous podcast. I need to craft a life from which I don't need to escape.
Wow.
Okay, and that is a good way to think about our goals. How am I going to create a life that I will enjoy every day and from which I don't need to escape? I won't need to go for a 2-day holiday here. I'm not going to wait for the weekend. Oh my God, weekend is coming, thank God. Or, can't wait for the summer to come to go for my 2-week vacation. No. I mean, all these are pleasant, but we should not be living for them. We need to be able to have a life where I get up every day and I'm happy to where I'm going. A life that we need to put life into living.
I think a very important point that you said is crafting. Like, we have the responsibility, and also we can craft our lives to be this.
Absolutely.
Because I know a lot of people they're like, oh, I can't do, like, this is what I have to do and this is my life. I can't escape from it because,
that could be the category of people who might become 40, 50 years old be very successful, have a great profession, make a lot of money, but are miserable because that's not who they are. So I assume that we can all do that. The idea is to start thinking about it and exploring it. What kind of life do I want to have? And in doing so, we need to get everybody out of our mind. It's a very personal thing, and we need to stay in the present.
I think that's a great way to wrap things up. Thank you so much again for being here, for doing this.
It's always a pleasure, always a lot of fun for me to do this.
Great. I'm so happy. All the best.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.